My name is Kimberly Davis. I'm 32, and last month my father called to tell me my mom was seriously ill. I dropped everything at my New York apartment, canceled client meetings, and spent $1,200 on a last-minute flight to Phoenix. They just needed a free babysitter for Amanda's 3 kids while they enjoyed a 10-day Bahamas cruise. When I arrived, exhausted and worried sick, I found my parents and sister Amanda packing swimsuits and sunscreen. Turns out, nobody was sick. The betrayal hit me like a freight train, but instead of exploding, I smiled. Before I tell you what happened next, drop a comment letting me know where you're rewatching from, while other kids were having fun at sleepovers or school dances. I was often home making sure my younger sister Amanda had dinner or finished her homework. And hit that subscribe button if your family has ever taken advantage of your kindness. Trust me, you'll want to see how this played out. When Amanda failed math in 7th grade, my parents asked me to tutor her instead of hiring professional help, even though I was struggling with my own advanced classes. Growing up in Phoenix, I was always the responsible one. Dad worked as an insurance adjuster and Mom was an elementary school teacher. Amanda had her first child, Tyler, at 23. By 27, she had 3 kids with 2 different fathers, neither of whom remained in the picture. They weren't bad parents by any means, but they definitely played favorites. After earning my MBA, I landed a job at a boutique event planning firm that specializes in corporate events. Our dynamic was established early. Amanda was the baby of the family who could do no wrong, and I was the reliable one expected to pick up the slack. Last year, I was promoted to senior event manager, handling clients with budgets in the millions. Our childhood home was a modest 4-bedroom in a middle-class neighborhood. Amanda could cry her way out of any punishment, while I was held to impossibly high standards. I limited contact mainly for self-preservation. When she wrecked Dad's car at 16, guess who gave up her savings for a class trip to help pay for repairs? That's right, me. College was my first taste of freedom. I attended Arizona State on scholarship while Amanda partied her way through community college, dropping out after 2 semesters. Even then, my parents called me regularly to help Amanda with job applications or to loan her money for rent. The pattern continued into our 20s. Through it all, our parents continued enabling her, watching the kids whenever she wanted to find herself or have me time. I asked, already pulling up flight options on my laptop, and the success of this launch could mean a substantial bonus and potential partnership. I finally escaped to New York 6 years ago. Though clearly displeased about the timing, she was understanding and agreed I could work remotely where possible. Through hard work and late nights, I built a reputation as someone who could handle high-pressure situations with grace. I grabbed my luggage and immediately hailed a rideshare to my parents' house, not even stopping for coffee. I dozed fitfully between bouts of anxiety about Mom and frantic email exchanges with my assistant about the event preparations. I packed haphazardly, called a taxi, and raced to JFK. My relationship with my family improved with distance. I'd visit twice a year, send gifts for birthdays and Christmas, and maintain a cordial relationship during our weekly phone calls. I genuinely love my niece and nephews Tyler, now 9, Lily 7, and Max 4, despite their mother's entitled behavior. I didn't bother knocking, using my old key instead. Palm trees swayed gently in the driveway, the same ones Dad had planted when we were kids. Every conversation with Amanda inevitably turned into complaints about how hard motherhood was, followed by not-so-subtle hints that I should help more because I only had myself to worry about. The week before my dad's call, I was deep into planning a major product launch for our biggest client, a tech company unveiling their groundbreaking new software. The event was scheduled for the following month, and I was working 14-hour days coordinating vendors, finalizing the venue details, and preparing contingency plans. My boss, Nancy, had entrusted me with this $2 million event because of my track record. When Dad called that Tuesday night, I was reviewing vendor contracts in my apartment. His voice sounded strange tight with worry. "Kimberly, it's Mom. She's got pneumonia, and the doctors are concerned. She's asking for you." "Well, we needed you to come, and we knew you'd make excuses about work if we told you the real reason." My blood ran cold. Mom had battled breast cancer 5 years earlier, and her immune system had never fully recovered. 3 matching luggage sets stood by the sliding glass door. "How bad is it?" "Bad enough that you should come home soon." His voice cracked. "Please, Kim, that was all it took." I called Nancy immediately, explaining the family emergency. "And we knew you'd be perfect to watch them while we're gone." I booked the earliest flight I could find to red-eye, leaving in 4 hours that cost nearly a month's rent. The flight was turbulent, both literally and emotionally. When we landed in Phoenix, I hadn't slept more than an hour. Little did I know what awaited me there, a betrayal so calculated it would force me to reevaluate my entire relationship with my family. The Arizona sun was blinding as the car pulled up to my parents' Spanish-style ranch home. I paid the driver, grabbed my suitcase, and rushed to the front door, my heart pounding with dread about Mom's condition. "Mom," I called out, dropping my bags in the entryway. "Dad, I'm here." The sound of laughter floated from the kitchen, not the subdued tones you expect in a house with a seriously ill patient. Confused, I followed the noise. There, gathered around the granite island counter, stood my entire family. Mom was vibrant and healthy, organizing a pile of beach hats. Dad was checking a printed itinerary. Amanda was folding tropical print dresses into a suitcase. "Kimberly," Mom exclaimed cheerfully, "you made it." Perfect timing. I stood frozen, trying to process what I was seeing. "You're not sick?" An awkward silence fell over the kitchen. Mom and Amanda exchanged glances while Dad suddenly became very interested in his paperwork. "Well," Mom finally said, "I had a little cold last week, but I'm fine now." "A cold?" I repeated numbly. "Dad told me you had pneumonia, that doctors were concerned, that you were asking for me." Dad cleared his throat. "The real reason?" My voice had risen an octave. That S when Amanda stepped forward with her practiced smile, the one she'd used since childhood to get her way. "We're going on a cruise, 10 days in the Bahamas. It's been planned for months, and we really need this break." "What does that have to do with me?" I asked, though the sinking feeling in my stomach told me I already knew. "The kids," Amanda said brightly. "They can't come with us. It's an adults-only cruise." The room spun slightly. "You lied about Mom being seriously ill so I would fly across the country to be your babysitter?" "Well, when you put it like that," Dad began. "Yes, that's exactly how I'm putting it," I snapped, "because that's what happened." Amanda rolled her eyes. "Don't be so dramatic. You were coming home for the holidays anyway, right? This is just a few weeks earlier." "I was coming home for 3 days at Christmas, not 2 weeks in October. I'm in the middle of planning a major event. I could lose my job over this. Amanda and your father and I really need this vacation. It's been so stressful with the kids and everything." Mom finally spoke up. "Sweetie, family comes first. And my life isn't stressful." I was shouting now. Tyler with his mop of blonde hair and curious eyes. Lily clutching her ever-present stuffed unicorn. Little Max, gum firmly in his mouth. I paid $1,200 for a last-minute flight. I thought Mom was dying. From the living room, 3 small faces peered around the corner. Despite my anger, my heart softened slightly at the sight of them. Amanda noticed my gaze and seized the opportunity. "You don't have kids, so you wouldn't understand how desperately parents need breaks sometimes. See, they're so excited to spend time with their Aunt Kimberly. Or does obligation only go one way in this family?" That condescending comment reignited my fury. I understand perfectly that you want a vacation. Are you really going to abandon your niece and nephews because of a little white lie? The admission that they knew exactly what they were doing. They had deliberately manipulated me, counting on my love for mom and my sense of family duty. Tyler's oddity is mostly under control with his medication. Lily only has dance class twice a week, and Max, well, he's still in his destructive phase, but he naps in the afternoon. We knew you were busy with work, but family obligations come first. Tyler gave me a small wave, and I couldn't help but wave back. We needed someone we could trust with the kids, and you're their aunt. What I don't understand is why you had to lie and manipulate me instead of asking like a normal person. The last time I visited, Tyler disassembled my hairdryer with a butter knife. Lily had a 2-hour meltdown over a broken crayon, and Max drew on every wall in the guest room. Dad stepped in, trying to mediate. Now, Kimberly, don't overreact. My family had gone too far this time. They had counted on my lifelong pattern of giving in, of putting everyone else's needs before my own. I sympathize with your situation, but there's no way you can be out of the office for that long right now. In their minds, I protest, then surrender, just like always. Your mother isn't actually sick. They lied to get you to babysit. I'm sorry, but there's too much at stake. If I abandoned the kids, I'd never forgive myself. If I stayed, I'd be sacrificing the career I worked so hard to build and showing my family that manipulating me worked. Family obligations? I laughed bitterly. Like honesty? Respect for each other's lives? My hands trembled as I dialed. This wasn't just about family drama anymore. My career was at stake. Mom's expression hardened, the look that had cowed me as a child. That's enough, Kimberly. We've made arrangements. Tickets are paid for, and we're leaving tomorrow morning. The kids need looking after. A little white lie? I was incredulous. You made me think you were seriously ill. Well, Dad said with infuriating casualness, we knew you wouldn't come if we told you the truth. And there it was. Like when Mommy surprises us with the dentist. I hate surprises. Amanda stepped closer, her voice honeyed, but her eyes calculating. It's just 10 days, Kim. The kids are really well behaved now. Under control, I repeated. I noticed that despite the months of planning Amanda had mentioned, there seemed to be very little actual preparation for the kids. They've matured, Amanda insisted, though her darting eyes betrayed her. Besides, they adore you. I looked again at the children who were now fully in the doorway. Despite everything, they weren't to blame for their mother's actions. Our ship leaves at 11 tomorrow, Mom said, clearly considering the matter settled. We'll go over the children's schedules tonight. The realization hit me. They never doubted I would cave. I was trapped. If I refused and left, the kids would be abandoned. If I stayed, I was rewarding their manipulation. As the full weight of their betrayal sank in, I felt something inside me shift fundamentally, a lifetime of resentment crystallizing into clarity. That evening, while my parents and Amanda continued packing as if nothing had happened, I retreated to the guest room to call Nancy. Let me get this straight, Nancy said after I explained the situation. Her New York directness was oddly comforting. Exactly. And now they're leaving tomorrow for 10 days. Kim, we have the Horizon launch in 3 weeks. I closed my eyes, feeling the walls closing in. I know. I'm trying to figure out a solution. Either come back or we'll have to reassign the project to Melissa, she said bluntly. Reassignment would effectively end my chances of partnership. After we hung up, I sat on the edge of the bed, trapped in an impossible position. A soft knock interrupted my thoughts. It was Lily, holding her unicorn. Aunt Kim, are you mad at us? Her small voice broke my heart. I pulled her into a hug. No, sweetie, never. Not surprised about the trip. Mommy said you'd be happy to play with us, she said innocently. Of course she did. I always love spending time with you, I told her truthfully. I just wish I'd known sooner. Lily nodded solemnly. Out of the mouths of babes. Dinner was a tense affair. Mom had ordered pizza, and while the kids chattered excitedly about all the things we would do together, the adults ate in uncomfortable silence. After the children went to bed, Amanda provided what she called a handover briefing, which consisted of a hastily scribbled note with their school details and a vague outline of their routines. Tyler needs his medication each morning with breakfast. The prescription bottle is in my bathroom. Lily has dance on Tuesdays and Thursdays. You'll need to get her there by 4. Max still has accidents sometimes, so there are pull-ups in his drawer. Oh, and none of them will eat vegetables unless you hide them in pasta sauce. What about emergency contacts? Their pediatrician's information? Health insurance cards? I asked. Amanda waved dismissively. They're healthy kids. You worry too much. And what about money for food, activities, or emergencies? I pressed, and we'll pay you back. You make good money in New York, right? My sister had the grace to look slightly embarrassed. We spent quite a bit on the cruise. I'm sure you can cover anything they need. Before I could respond, Mom interrupted. Don't call unless it's a real emergency. It's getting late and we have an early start tomorrow. Everything will be fine, Kimberly. Lily couldn't find her favorite hair clips for school. Tyler announced he hated the breakfast I made and demanded chocolate cereal instead. You're making this more complicated than it needs to be. Dad loaded the luggage while Mom fussed over the kids, giving last-minute instructions and kisses. I went to the wrong entrance, then had to navigate the complex carpool lane system while other parents honked impatiently. Tyler had lost his backpack. Lily was in tears because someone had said her drawing was babbish. Max had apparently decided pants were optional and was missing one leg of his jeans. And the client wants to revise the seating chart again. I was already exhausted. I returned to the empty house and tried to salvage some work, sending emails and joining a conference call about the Horizon launch. Amanda barely said goodbye to her children, too busy checking if she'd packed enough sunscreen. It was a selfie of her and her parents on the cruise ship, cocktails in hand, with the caption, "Their departure the next morning was a whirlwind." Our cell service might be spotty on the ship, Dad mentioned casually as they headed for the door. They were finally relaxing while I was sacrificing my career and sanity, and this was only day 1 of 10. Between checking work emails, trying to recover deleted files, and Max waking up twice with nightmares, I maybe got 3 hours of rest. This was exploitation. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't willing to accept it. And just like that, they were gone, leaving me with 3 children and a growing sense of dread. The chaos began almost immediately. Max threw a tantrum when he realized his mother had actually left. The venue had questions about technical requirements, and the client was growing increasingly anxious about my remote status. By the time I got them all to school late because no one had told me about the specific drop-off procedures. We need those vendor confirmations by tomorrow, my assistant Julian reminded me. My work conference call had to be rescheduled again. I'm on it, I promised, though I had no idea how I'd manage everything. I heard the crash from the kitchen. That afternoon, school pickup was another disaster. The evening spiraled further out of control. I discovered the refrigerator was nearly empty except for condiments and some questionable leftovers. After an emergency trip to the grocery store with all 3 kids in tow, because I couldn't leave them alone, I returned to find that Max had managed to unlock my phone and was in the process of deleting my emails. Lily started crying, thinking I was angry. Tyler began frantically trying to pick up the pieces. Max looked confused by my silence. I had cloud backups of most files, but not the latest revisions of the Horizon presentations. Look, Aunt Kim, I fixing it, he announced proudly as I watched in horror. then sent them to play in the backyard while I assessed the damage. By the time I got them all bathed and into bed, it was past 10. I collapsed onto the couch only to receive a text from Amanda. Bon voyage. Finally relaxing. Kids being good. They're talking about taking their business to Henderson and Associates if we can't demonstrate stability. Henderson was our biggest competitor. I stared at their smiling faces, my exhaustion turning to simmering rage. Sleep eluded me that night. I was about to lose the career I'd spent years building because my family had manipulated me into an impossible situation. One more problem without a solution. And Max drew on the dining room table with permanent marker. I retreated to the bathroom for a moment of peace. As I lay awake staring at the ceiling, I realized with perfect clarity, this wasn't love or family duty. By day 2, I was running on fumes. The morning routine was slightly smoother until I discovered Tyler was out of his Addi medication. Mom usually gets more when the bottle is empty, he explained, handing me the container to show me the single pill remaining. I called the pharmacy, only to learn they could refill the prescription without doctor authorization, and Amanda hadn't left any information about Tyler as doctor. I can try calling around to pediatricians in the area, the pharmacist suggested sympathetically. That would be great, I said, adding it to my growing list of problems. I managed to get the kids to school on time, then set up my makeshift office at the dining room table. The Horizon launch was unraveling in my absence. Vendors were backing out without in-person reassurance. I was deep in crisis management mode when I got a call from Lily's school. Miss Davis, this is the school nurse. Lily says she has a stomach ache and needs to go home. 20 minutes later, I picked up a perfectly healthy-looking Lily, who admitted as we left the school that she just missed Mommy and wanted company. By afternoon, things went from bad to worse. While I was helping Tyler with his math homework, Max decided to explore my laptop. Running into the living room, I found my $2,000 MacBook on the floor, screen shattered with Max standing over it, a hammer from God knows where in his small hand. I wanted to see inside, he explained innocently, my laptop with all my work files. My presentations for the Horizon launch gone. I didn't yell. I couldn't. I just stood there, staring at the destruction of both my property and likely my career. I gathered them all for a group hug, assuring them everything was okay. The laptop was beyond repair. My phone rang. It was Nancy. Kimberly, we need to talk. Her voice was professional but cold. The Horizon people are getting nervous. They've asked about having Melissa step in as backup. Nancy, I can fix this. I just need. We can't risk losing this account, Kim. Give me 24 hours, I pleaded. I'll figure something out. After we hung up, I stared at the wall, the full weight of the situation crushing me. The doorbell rang. It was the pharmacy delivery with Tyler's medication, which they couldn't refill because they couldn't reach his doctor. That night, after another chaotic dinner, where Lily refused to eat anything but plain pasta, Tyler built and launched a soda bottle rocket in the living room. During the flight, I focused on salvaging what I could of the Horizon launch. Using the in-flight Wi-Fi in my tablet, I recreated portions of the lost presentation and emailed detailed instructions to Julian. I'm proud of you, she said simply. By the time we landed at JFK, I had a plan to save both the event and possibly my job. The video call showed 3 happy children, faces smeared with chocolate from cookie baking, eagerly telling me about their day. Jessica met me at the airport, enveloping me in a hug before I could even put down my bags. As we drove to her apartment, I checked in with Carol. Aunt Carol lets us help cook, Tyler announced proudly, and secure in the knowledge that I had finally done what was right for everyone, including myself. And we have to put our toys away before getting new ones out, Lily added, as if this revolutionary concept both puzzled and pleased her. Max just waved frantically, shouting Monsieur and Kim before running off to show Carol's cat a cookie. They're adjusting beautifully, Carol assured me. Don't worry about a thing here. That night in Jessica's guest room, I slept better than I had in days. Unburdened by the weight of others, expectations I had to return to salvage my career after being manipulated into leaving it, the explosion happened exactly as I'd anticipated. Amanda called from the cruise ship, her voice shrill with panic and rage. What do you mean you're in New York? Where are my kids? I maintained the calm, professional tone I'd practiced. The children are safe with Aunt Carol. Kimberly and Davis, what the hell do you think you're doing? You abandoned my children. She was practically screeching now, not to mention the emotional damage of thinking Mom was dying. No, Amanda. I assured they were safely cared for by a responsible adult after their mother abandoned them for a cruise. Her sputtering was interrupted by my father grabbing the phone. Setting boundaries, I replied evenly. Something I should have done years ago. You all chose deception instead, which tells me you knew what you were asking was unreasonable. We asked you for one simple favor. I video chat with them twice daily. This isn't about revenge. It's about consequences for adult choices. You lied about Mom being critically ill to manipulate me into flying across the country. That's not asking for a favor. That's exploitation. Don't be so dramatic, he scoffed. It was just a little white lie. Mom tried the guilt approach, claiming the stress was affecting her health. Ironically similar to the lie that started it all. But I held firm, ending the call by saying, I'm happy to discuss this when you ready to have an adult conversation about boundaries and respect. We can discuss this when you return and are ready to have a respectful conversation. Amanda vacillated between rage. You've ruined our vacation and manipulation. The kids are crying for me. A lie that cost me $1,200 in airfare, nearly cost me my job, and destroyed my $2,000 laptop. Tyler's behavior had improved dramatically with proper medication management. Even Max was having fewer tantrums, responding well to Carol's gentle but firm boundaries. It was in her kitchen drawer under a pile of takeout menus. All she had to do was look. Carol had immediately contacted their pediatrician, whose information she already had as a family member. But you still should have discussed your plans with us before taking such drastic action. The angry accusations gave way to grudging acceptance, then awkward attempts at reconciliation. There was a pause. Then my mother's voice came on the line. Amanda's been getting away with murder for years. Honey, we're sorry if you felt misled, but family helps family. You know, Amanda needed this break. The carefully crafted apology that wasn't actually an apology ignited my resolve further. They came home to find not only my letter detailing their manipulation, but also a community less willing to overlook their behavior than before. If Amanda needed help, she could have asked honestly, proud of you. Jim and Sandra have been enabling Amanda's behavior too long. Maybe this will be the wake-up call they all need. Nancy had been understandably upset, but gave me a chance to make things right when she saw my determination. Julian had stepped up admirably in my absence, keeping things afloat until I returned. Word had spread about what happened, and instead of the unanimous condemnation my parents clearly expected, many relatives reached out to express support for my actions. So you abandoned 3 innocent children as revenge? Mom's voice dripped with manufactured outrage. The children are having a wonderful time with their great aunt, who is providing structure and stability. The conversation devolved further with threats and guilt trips that would have crushed the old Kimberly. Over the next few days, the calls and texts escalated. Dad threatened everything from cutting me out of the will to telling my boss about my irresponsibility. Through it all, I maintained my boundaries. I responded to each message with the same calm statement: the children are safe and well cared for. Meanwhile, in New York, I was working around the clock to save the Horizon launch. "You look different," he observed during our first day back at the office. "More, I don't know, solid." I smiled, knowing exactly what he meant. Standing up for myself had changed something fundamental in how I carried myself. The updates from Carol were consistently positive. Under her care, the children were thriving with consistent routines and clear expectations. Lily was blossoming with the one-on-one attention during their art projects. I found Amanda's pediatrician information in about 5 minutes. Carol told me during one of our calls. A week into their cruise, the tone of my family's messages began to shift. "We might have overreacted," Dad conceded in a voicemail. It was as close to an admission of wrongdoing as I'd ever heard from him. What truly surprised me, however, was the reaction from the extended family. "It's about time someone stood up to them," my cousin Rachel texted. My uncle Mark, Dad's brother, actually called to say, "Good for you, kiddo." Even my grandmother, usually the first to insist on family harmony at all costs, sent a card that simply read, asterisk, "Sometimes love means setting boundaries." By the time my family returned from their cruise, public opinion had shifted decisively in my favor. Amanda called the day after they returned, her tone subdued. "The kids seem happy at Carol's. They've been telling me about all the activities and rules." She said rules like it was a foreign concept. Max actually picked up his toys without being asked. "Carol's good with children," I replied neutrally. A long pause followed. "I didn't think about what my request would do to your job," she finally said. It wasn't quite an apology, but it was the closest Amanda had come to acknowledging my reality in years. "No, you didn't." I agreed, and Dad and Mom didn't think about the emotional impact of lying about a serious illness. Another pause. "They thought you wouldn't come otherwise, because I have responsibilities of my own. Adult responsibilities that deserve respect." The conversation ended awkwardly, but it was the first time we'd spoken as equals rather than in our usual enabled dynamic. 2 days later, I received the most surprising message of all, a text from my father that contained just 5 words. Asterisk, asterisk, "You might have been right." From him, it was practically a full confession. The Horizon launch ultimately went forward successfully, though with some scaled-back elements due to the time lost. Nancy recognized my extraordinary effort in salvaging the event and, in a surprising turn, used the family emergency as leverage with the client. Asterisk, imagine what she can do without such obstacles. My parents had stopped their guilt trips when I couldn't make it for random family events. Most surprisingly, the ADL started acknowledging my career as a legitimate priority rather than an inconvenient obstacle to my family obligations. Kimberly managed to deliver this caliber of event despite a genuine family crisis, she told them. By the time I flew back to Phoenix 2 weeks later, this time on my own terms with a clearly defined 3-day visit, something fundamental had shifted in my family dynamic, and Mom made sure I had time to work on it every day. Spring had brought desert wildflowers and a tentative new growth in my family relationships as well. Mom got me a chart to track my progress. It wasn't perfect, not by a long shot, but for the first time, there was an acknowledgement that I had the right to set boundaries and that crossing them had consequences. 6 months after what my cousin Rachel had dubbed the Great Babysitting Mutiny, I found myself back in Phoenix for a weekend visit. The changes were subtle but significant. Not dramatically, leopards don't completely change their spots overnight, but meaningfully. Amanda had actually called 2 weeks in advance to ask if I could watch the kids for a single evening during my visit, rather than assuming my availability. Dad had begun acknowledging my professional accomplishments, even asking thoughtful questions about my work. Tyler ran to hug me when I arrived, proudly showing me his science fair ribbon. I just expected everyone to fill in the gaps for me. And Carol helped me with the research, he explained. My new position came with more responsibility, but also more flexibility to manage my own schedule, including reasonable time for family visits on my terms. Lily, more reserved but equally excited, had prepared a dance routine to show me. Amanda had actually cooked instead of ordering takeout, and the kids had helped set the table. The conversation flowed more easily than it had in years, with everyone getting a chance to speak without interruption or dismissal. I practice for 30 minutes every day now, she informed me seriously. It was wrong, and it showed a lack of respect for your life and commitments. Mom nodded, adding, "We took you for granted for a long time, Kimberly. We expected you to drop everything whenever Amanda needed something. We're sorry." Dad finished simply. Even little Max seemed more centered, greeting me with a surprisingly gentle hug instead of his former tackling approach. "We've been working on appropriate ways to show affection," Amanda explained, a hint of defensiveness in her tone, but also genuine pride. Not we're sorry, but not we're sorry you felt that way. "Are you still mad at Mom and Grandma and Grandpa?" he asked. "Just we're sorry. A real apology. My sister had changed too." She'd started taking parenting classes at the community center, prompted initially by Carol's influence, but continuing on her own. And I've been trying to be more self-sufficient. Carol's been helping me with budgeting and schedules. She glanced at her aunt, who had been invited to dinner at my request. By finally standing up for myself, I had not only gained self-respect, but had actually helped my family grow. But we had new awareness now and tools to communicate more honestly. Our relationships were healthier now, built on mutual respect rather than obligation and guilt. I realized I didn't actually know what I was doing. She admitted during a rare moment of vulnerability as we sat on the patio while the kids played in the yard. Sometimes a smile in the face of manipulation, followed by setting firm boundaries, can change not just your life, but the lives of those around you. Have you ever had to take a stand like I did? Drop a comment below sharing your experience. And don't forget to subscribe to hear more stories about navigating complicated family dynamics. If this resonated with you, please give it a thumbs up and share it with someone who might need to hear that it's okay to prioritize their own well-being. Setting boundaries isn't selfish. It's necessary for healthy relationships. And sometimes those who push back hardest against your boundaries are the ones who needed them most all along. Parenting is hard, I acknowledged. I can't imagine doing it without support. But I took advantage of that support, she said, staring into her iced tea, especially from you, for years. It was the closest thing to an apology I expected to get, and I accepted it for what it was, growth. My parents had made adjustments too. Mom had stopped her reflexive defense of Amanda's every action. The most profound change, however, was within me. The crisis had forced me to articulate and defend my boundaries in ways I'd never done before. The sky hadn't fallen. My family hadn't disowned me. In fact, our relationships had improved with clearer expectations and mutual respect. Professionally, I'd not only survived but thrived. Nancy had recognized my crisis management skills during the Horizon debacle, and I'd been promoted to partner 3 months later. That Sunday night, we gathered for dinner at my parents' house. After dinner, as we sat in the living room, Dad cleared his throat in that way that signaled he had something important to say. "Your mother and I have been doing some thinking," he began, looking uncomfortable but determined, "about what happened last fall." The room grew quiet. We hadn't directly addressed the incident since it happened. "We shouldn't have lied to you," he continued. The words hung in the air, precious and unexpected. "Thank you," I said, emotion making my voice thick. "That means a lot to me." Amanda, never one to handle emotional moments gracefully, jumped in. Carol smiled encouragingly. "Amanda's made remarkable progress. She hasn't asked me to babysit on short notice once this month." "Baby steps," Amanda admitted with a self-deprecating laugh. Later that evening, as I prepared to leave for my hotel, Tyler approached me with a serious expression. I knelt to his level. "I'm not mad, Tyler. I was hurt and disappointed, but we're working through it." He nodded thoughtfully. "Mom explained that you have important work in New York, like she has important work being our mom." "That's right," I agreed, touched by this evidence of Amanda's changed perspective. "And she said everyone deserves respect, even when they say no." I hugged him tight, my heart full. "Your mom is absolutely right about that." As I drove to my hotel, I reflected on the unexpected gifts that had come from that painful episode. The path forward wouldn't always be smooth. Old patterns have a way of reasserting themselves in times of stress. For the first time in my adult life, I felt like an equal member of my family rather than just the reliable one who could be counted on to sacrifice without complaint. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for others is to show them how to treat you properly. If you've ever found yourself in a similar situation, taken for granted, manipulated, or expected to continually sacrifice your needs for others, I hope my story gives you courage. I'd love to hear your stories of setting boundaries with family members. Thank you for listening to my journey, and remember, true family support goes both ways.